Are you ready to talk?
Oh yeah, I'm ready to talk.
Well, okay, let's talk.
Just settle down. We wanna talk with you. What's going around?
Let's talk.
On the Brown Skin Chit Chat Show. Skin Chit
Let's talk.
Show.
Hey, welcome
Hello.
to Brown Skin Chit Chat. Hi, I'm one of your hosts, Monique Brown, and I got my sister over here.
Hello, I'm Casey. How are you guys doing today?
So Shalita had to, we're missing another sister in the studio, but she had some other things going on today. So you just get us. You just get us. So today's topic, I think most of you all will be able to resonate with. It's self-care. We want to talk about, setting boundaries with self-care, and why self-care and mental health is so important, especially in our community. I think that as African Americans, it's sometimes frowned upon to go to therapy and those type of things. But I will say that, speaking for myself, mental health is a critical portion of my well-being. To me, it is. I have a therapist. I meet with my therapist on a regular basis, and it helps me kind of ground myself. Therapy has helped me overcome many things in my life. And I think a lot of times the connotation with therapy is like something is wrong, right? But I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that sometimes you just need someone that doesn't know you, that, can objectively come back and say, like, here's another perspective on how to see things. So for me, I feel like self-care, and having a healthy self-care routine is critical to my own well-being and my own health, overall health. Just like you go to the doctor, hopefully y'all going to the doctor. Just like you go to the doctor and get checkups, I think that your mental health should be a regular portion of your health and checkup. So, Casey, what about you? What do you do to help yourself with mental health and self care?
Like you, I too see a therapist. But far as my mental, I always make sure that I check in with myself with my mental. Um, and that looks like, why am I stressed? Why am I frustrated? It looks like, am I allowing myself to be overextended? Am
Mm,
I um, in spaces that I should not be in? You know, so I have to be, responsible too for my mental as well. So I always check in with myself, because I believe a lot of my stress comes from overextending myself, and just trying to fit in, especially adults, we still struggle, trying to fit in with certain things. So, whether that be, oh, should I join this team or that team, or, at work, oh, should I go to this meeting? I mean, those kind of struggles. So I always check in with myself.
yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
important because, I think so many of us grew up with, well, it's nice to be nice.
Hmm.
That was the people that fit in. So you got accustomed to saying yes because those were the nice people. The nice people said yes. And so you just fit in. And as an adult, you overextend yourself with saying yes too many times, right? And so you're an adult. You get to decide what rooms you want to be in. If you don't want to be there,
Yeah,
the
that
answer
part.
is no. No is a complete sentence. You don't have
It
to do
sure
stuff
is,
you don't want to do,
with
right? So
no
I think
explanation.
with no explanations, that it is what it is, right? And so I think that as we are mirroring, good self care to our children and to other people around us, whether it's another woman. It's okay for you to say no, and now that doesn't really work for me. That's not something that I want to do. So I think boundaries are really, really important
Mhm.
about, trying to, to me, that's an example of setting, practicing self care.
Right. The
Yeah.
mental part
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think it's important because you touched on something. I want to dive into that a little bit. You were saying, like um just having to check in with yourself. So what are some things that you do to like kind of check in with yourself?
Oh, daily I check in. When my feet hit the floor in the morning, I check in. My mental check in is, okay, how am I feeling in this moment before I even stand? Especially being older, you're like, what hurts today? So that's part
Because
of my
yes.
check in. That's part of my check in. So, I always check in with myself daily on how I feel when I first wake up. Now, if I'm in pain, I try to, tell myself that it's going to get better as the day goes on, you know? So
Mhm.
before I know it, I've taken my shower and I'm not hurting anymore. I guess that's part of being, getting older, just little things like that that can set my day off, because if you're in pain, sometimes you're not nice, and
Mhm.
when you have to deal with the public, um, you really have to check yourself, your physical, your mental, so you can be your best version of you because you can't give to people if you're not at your best, right? So if my mental and my physical check is off, I know what type of day I could pretty much gauge what type of day um, I'm going to have. Now it's up to me mentally how I'm going to, approach my day. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
mindful of that by checking in with myself and realizing, okay, this aches or, whatever my issue is. I try to
Mhm.
not let that influence my day from the beginning, from when I first wake up.
Yeah. I think sleep also plays a big role in it, right? Like if you're sleep
Right.
deprived, I think we don't spend enough time talking about and exercising good sleep patterns. Um, I know I don't. I have a routine at night that, I have a sleep monitor. It monitors the health of my sleep or what have you. But like on the weekends, I don't use it. And so it's like Sunday night, I'm like starting the cycle all over again. Where I've heard, different studies and read different studies, like it's good just to continue that every day, even
Mhm.
through the weekend. And so I say that to say that a lot of times we're sleep deprived. And so when I
Mhm.
wake up, when my feet hit that floor, I'm
Right.
still groggy and tired. And so I may be popping off at somebody. It had nothing to do with you. It's just the fact that
Right.
I'm so sleepy.
I'm just tired. Yeah. Or I'm achy today.
Yes, yes, exactly. And it's like, why am I so angry? Why am I so mad?
Mhm.
Like you said, when you do that self check in, it's like, what is wrong with me?
What is wrong with me?
Oh, I'm sleepy. I didn't stop, scrolling on Instagram until late last night
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
You know, yes, yes. So I think those are key things. I know for me, like I started, gosh, maybe some months ago, and I will say that I don't do it as consistently as I would like to, but I try to do it, at least 3 times a month. Um, and that's every Sunday when my kids go to bed. I run a hot bubble bath and I just zone out. Sometimes I listen to music. Sometimes I may read. Sometimes I just pray, meditate, just sit there with my eyes closed. It helps ground me, um, to prepare for the next week. the next moment, I tend to overthink things. And
Mhm.
so that time just helps me to kind of wash away that whatever was worrying me, whatever was bothering me, and know that I'm starting fresh. And this is a new day, a new week. I'm starting fresh. So that bubble bath is like really important to me. I tell my like I'm going to take my bubble bath. Don't nobody bother me.
Right.
Um, you know, and that's why I do it like when my kids are asleep. So it's like, okay, and now that they're out of school, it's just like mommy needs a minute. So I think having rituals, I also journal. There's a journal app on my phone, and sometimes I used to write through my journals. Now I find it easier just to randomly talk through journaling, and record them, for myself. So those are practices that I think have
Oh, that's
helped
good.
mental health,
Right.
and prepared me for just showing up in my best version of myself.
Right. Right. That's so important. The self check. When we're talking about mental, I I try not to beat myself up because I'm my worst critic. You know, I still struggle with that, because I'm hard on myself. I'm very hard on myself. Um, so that's something that I have to consider too in my day. Like, why am I acting, a certain way? Is it something that I've self inflicted by beating myself up? Okay, if I don't do this today or that today, I'm being hard on myself, trying to accomplish objectives and, meet deadlines, meet or beat deadlines,
Yeah,
I learned that I'm stressing my own self out doing that. And I had to realize that I can't do everything. And who's
yeah,
expecting me to do everything? Those are my expectations I have of myself. And sometimes they're not realistic, so I have to be honest with myself, you know, and be okay with not able to complete something, and
yeah,
carry on the
yeah.
next day.
Yeah, and give yourself grace. I think
Right.
that is so important, because the conversations that the self-talk that we have with ourselves
Hmm.
can be so, hurtful, and um I hate to use this word, but in lack of a better word, violent with ourselves. Like the
Hmm.
conversation that we have with ourselves, we would never say to anybody. I would never say
Right.
to somebody,
Right.
but I have no problem with like, girl, why did you do that? And you should have did this. And the level of perfectionism and expectation
Mhm.
that we set for ourselves and for, our situations and our circumstances, a lot of times we don't have that same level of expectation, for other people around us. So I think it's
Right.
important and I'm not saying that, you shouldn't push yourself, because I
Mhm.
do think that helping to
Right.
motivate yourself and exercise outside of your comfort zone is part of self-care as well, right?
Right.
That's also
Right.
part of, like, you want to be able to proceed and progress in life.
Right.
But I also think that the journey to get there doesn't have to be abuse. And
Right.
sometimes it's self-inflicted abuse upon what we're saying to ourselves and how we're doing, treating ourselves.
Mhm.
That we really have to check that. I think that's
Right.
important. Yeah.
It's very important. I agree 100% because I do it on a daily.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to, I always tell people you have to validate yourself first,
Mhm.
and in that self check or self care, you know, self care is praising yourself, like you said as well, and not looking for validation from others, to be um, so in tune and so in love with yourself, where you're at, who you are and where you're at, that
Right.
the other stuff, you make room to grow. You make room to grow, but don't be
Yeah.
so hard on you when growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so important, because when we think about, you know, the journeys that we've
Mhm.
come through and the experiences and the challenges that we've come through, you know, I always remind myself I am still that girl. I'm still that chick. Like, I'm still
Right.
that girl I'm still that boss. I'm still that chick. I'm still the one that, defined, what's the word I'm trying to think? That I overcame all of those challenges, right? And
Right,
so
right,
for me, I have to remind myself that I'm able to do hard
mhm,
things, and the things that I would say to you, I have to, say to myself.
right,
And I think that a lot of times we don't give ourselves, like I said, we don't remind ourselves of who we really are and the things that we've come through and the things we've been able to accomplish. It's easy to say, like, well, why didn't I do this and why didn't I do that? It's easy to play the Monday morning quarterback,
right,
but
right,
reminding myself that, hey, did I make the best decision that I could have made given the situation, given all the information that I knew at the time? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. I
right.
made the right decision for myself. But yeah, going back and being able to evolve and learn from, those mistakes and stuff, that's also part of growing and part of life. So
Right,
yeah, but yeah,
right.
yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm just like, huh. I had to just remind myself today, actually, who I was.
Hmm.
You know, I
Yeah.
had a moment where I was like, oh, holy crap. You know, let's not freak out, Kat. Remember who you are, girl. You got this.
Hmm.
You can handle this. This wouldn't be, presented to you if you couldn't handle it. So let's go for it. Let's not even
Right.
second guess and get all worked up about it. Let's just go ahead and walk through these doors. And majority of the
Hmm.
time, it's fine. So
Yes.
self self checking yourself in that manner as well is like trying not to, let those anxieties take over, because some, like you said, we overthink things. So let's
Yeah.
just go with life,
Yeah.
because I don't know about others, but me, I see my day a certain way. And if you throw something in it, it's like, I wasn't expecting that. It just threw, it used to be that way. But now it's like, oh, well, it didn't go that way. Who cares? We're off to the next. And, the day turned out better than I expected in any way.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm learning
And you
to,
have to be able to like operate within that because sometimes,
right?
I truly believe this. I believe that, men's rejection is God's protection.
That
Okay.
part.
So sometimes there are
Hmm.
situations that are or doors that are closed or situations that are not happening because God said, mm-mm, nope,
Yeah, for a
you're not
reason.
or people that walk out of your life because he said they don't belong in the next chapter.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard for us to, kind of hold on to the pictures that we paint for ourselves. And when we do that, I think that's where depression comes in because I
Hmm.
had painted this picture of what it was supposed to look like. And it was supposed to be like this. And it's not like this. But therapy has taught me. My therapist was very proud of me. Therapy has taught me that, things have really happened for a reason. And I've been
Hmm.
able to show up in places in better versions of myself because of the
Exactly.
things that I've gone through and
Right.
things that I thought were going to take me out, that I thought were going to kill me. They have actually been the thing that's helped to propel me to the next better version of myself. But I do
Right.
want to talk a little bit about therapy because I do feel like, again, as African Americans, we tend to shy away from therapy. And I'm not on here trying to tell you to, go and, tell all your business or, get a therapist. That's not what I'm trying to do. But I do think that you should be open to therapy because
Hmm.
sometimes you need to talk to someone who can objectively listen to you and your situation and give
Right.
you different perspectives on, maybe how to handle those situations. What do you think about, just therapy in the African American community? Because, with us, Casey, like we don't tell our people our business.
Right.
Why are we
That's
telling black
right.
people our business?
Right. Because I was brought up in a world of the less people know about you, the better off you are. I still believe that. back to your question, I think, a lot of African American people will not go seek help. But then there is a culture, the younger culture, Gen X, we will go sitting down and talk to somebody. Like, look, I need to talk to somebody,
Yeah,
because I'm overwhelmed. I'm whatever, you just need somebody to show you, or just not even show you, just dump on so you can figure it out yourself, because that's mainly what you're doing. You're dumping on, your therapist. They're teaching you tools on how to figure your stuff out by yourself anyway,
right,
which
right.
I had a gauge, but I just didn't know how to direct the energy. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I knew
Yeah.
what I wanted to
No.
do or whatever, but I didn't know what to do with all the anxiety, of trying to
Yeah.
figure it out. So I think in our culture, African American people should, seek out help outside of, whether it's a pastor, whether it's a
Yes.
teacher, or seek some kind of assistance. Someone you can talk to that you feel safe with talking to, because it helps. It really does. It helps. It doesn't have to be, because there's a stigma with going to see. I used to hear people say, "Oh, you go see the shrink for your head," whatever.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
you don't
Yeah.
want to be associated with that, right? Because they're like,
Right.
"Oh, you're crazy," or "You can't handle life," or whatever people say. No, it's
Right.
not like that. Get that train of thought out of your life. It's not like that. You're going to a neutral ground to
Yes.
figure out your thoughts. That's how I
Yeah.
look at
Yeah. I
it.
think that's so important because therapy doesn't have to look like, a MD or a psychiatrist or anything, like that. Therapy
Right,
could be this.
right.
It could be
Talking to your
talking to
girlfriend
your girlfriend. It could
or your
be
buddy. Or,
for men talking to a men's group or talking to, your boy that, has kind of gone through the same thing. If you're new to fatherhood or you're new to being married and, go talk to the guy that, has been married for a while, whose, kids are grown that can share a different perspective, with you. I don't think it has to be this formal setting. Maybe it is,
right,
maybe it isn't. But I think the biggest thing is that we tend to suffer in silence.
exactly.
And we believe in like, I'm going to keep everything close to the vest. I'm not
Model
going to say
that.
anything. I'm not going to tell anybody my situation. And when you do that, I think you do more harm and hurt to
Right.
yourself.
Isolate yourself. Isolate yourself. Why do
Yes.
that when there's help? There's people that will listen to you. They're not trying to
Yes.
figure it out for you. If you just need someone to listen to you,
Mhm.
that's a
Yes.
find you a safe place for that. Yeah, absolutely, Monique.
And they're not judging you. I think that's the other thing,
Exactly.
especially in this world of social media. I was listening to the pastor today, and she was talking about, um, when you do something good, you always post it on social media, right? But we very rarely put the bad things on, right? We don't put where we've come short, or if you made something that didn't turn out right. Like nobody's putting their burnt,
Right.
dinner on social media, but if it's good and it looks good and the cake looks good, and oh yeah, we post that. I think that we are so accustomed to judging each other,
Exactly.
and we're afraid that someone's going to judge me
Right.
because I am having a hard time with a situation. Maybe I'm having a hard time, as a mom, or maybe I'm having a hard time as a wife, and nobody else can really understand what I'm going through. And then when
Mhm.
you talk to someone and you're vulnerable and you let
Mhm.
yourself open up in a safe place, because not everybody
Right.
needs to have
Exactly.
secrets,
I
but
put
a safe
emphasis on
place,
safe.
safe place. Like,
And
like
neutral. Right.
I heard someone say that before, and I think that's so important. Like, I think it was like Ellen Van Zant. She was saying like, not everybody deserves a seat at the table.
Exactly.
And your life is the table. So I
Right.
think where it's safe, you will find so many things that I think people will impart wisdom on you
Mhm.
that may have or has gone through the same thing, because 9 times out of 10, you are not the only one going through it. You're not the only one that has gone through it. I mean, I know your boys are grown, but I can remember earlier on when my kids were a lot little, even hell now, I'm like, Casey, what am I doing? Da, 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 should I do this and should I do that? And so we're able to, share, impart, you've been able to impart a lot of wisdom with me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I think if I wasn't vulnerable enough and open enough to at least have the dialogue and conversation, God, I
Right.
don't even know where I would be. Probably
Right.
really crazy.
Right. Because you'll go beating yourself up again,
Yes.
So that it is
Absolutely.
important to have a person or persons or whatever, a safe place to go to talk. So I really, really, whoever's listening, um,
Yeah.
encourage you to do that and don't be ashamed doing that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think in this world where, and I don't know the statistics, so I won't try and quote it, but we're seeing higher number of African American people dying by suicide.
Right.
And this world can be very cruel and hard and
Right.
cold. And
Okay.
so I just encourage you to talk to someone, anyone.
Right.
Um, you know, don't suffer in silence. Whether it's for the big things or the little things.
Right.
It could be, hey, I'm just having a rough day today.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you find community where you can bring that up and just talk to someone about it. And I know sometimes when I talk to my therapist, sometimes my therapist is my husband, and so, sometimes I just say, I just need you to let me throw this all up on you.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I don't want your opinion. I don't want feedback. I don't want to know how
Let
to
me get
fix
it
it.
out.
I
Right.
just need to get this out.
Right.
I just need to get this off my chest,
Hey, even doing that, can help your mental tremendously.
Yes, absolutely.
Just letting
Absolutely.
it out, letting your
Need to
thoughts
say,
out, those emotions out. Just get it out. Don't hold that. It doesn't
yes,
it doesn't serve you any justice. And you'll be surprised how easy your life becomes or more manageable your life becomes when you begin to seek out the help you need because you're like, wow, I'm glad I did that, Um,
right,
because there are people that they don't want to be here, and it's like, wow, and you hear certain stories and you're like, man, I wish, they would have reached out,
right, right,
yeah.
right.
So
Exactly.
even if you're a friend and you're suspecting something, if I ask you, for example, Monique, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine, but your friend, and you could tell just by the way they answered,
Mm-hmm.
look them in the eye, stop them. How
Yes,
are you?
yes. How
Get
are
their
you?
attention. So because
Right.
they're so used to just going like, oh, I'm fine, the kids are fine, blah, 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 blah. That's not what I'm asking, friend. I'm
Yes,
asking, how are you today? You know,
yes.
some take that few seconds, out of your time to reach out to your friends and check in and family members. It could be anybody, and
It's
just,
so
do
true.
a check on the people you care about.
Yeah, on one of the episodes we just recorded, we talked about friendship and just, being there to really do just what you said, right? Like understanding that the bonds of friendship, go beyond just a text message. Sometimes you
Right,
need to pick up the phone and hear their
right,
voice. I know there have been times where I will call a friend and it's like, hey, how's it going? Oh, it's going okay. Really? Let's try that again.
mhm,
I know that,
mhm,
I know that friend and I'm like,
right,
you want to try that again? Like something's, are you really okay?
right,
Your tone sounds off,
mhm,
even sometimes like they may post something on social media
right,
and I will see and I'll go, that sounds a little off for you. Or if I
right,
haven't heard from them, so I think it is important for community to check in with each
to
other.
check in. Yeah,
That's part of practicing good mental health because mental health isn't just about you, but it's also about uplifting our community as well. You know,
exactly. And it doesn't have to be in a manner of being in someone's business per se. Because I think
yeah.
in the Black community, that's another stigma. I don't want people in my business. It's like
Mhm.
nobody's trying to be in your business. We're just trying to make sure you're okay and
You're
being
okay.
okay where you're at. nobody's trying to control you or whatever. Just knowing that, hey, we're here for you if you
Mhm.
need
That's right.
help, whatever.
That's
So
right. That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, as we wind this one up, any parting words of wisdom that you want to leave our viewers with?
I would say always, always, always put yourself first. It's not selfish to put yourself first. It's very important you put yourself first and check in with yourself, especially mentally, so you can be your best version of you, and you can dump into others, and help them navigate this journey of life. It's that simple. Just check in and, let people know that you're here for them or vice versa or whatever. Just
Yeah,
love each other because this journey is short, people. It's short. So yeah,
for sure.
check in.
For sure. Yeah. I would agree. I think you brought up a good point. So I'm going to just expand upon that. The difference between being selfish and selfless, right? I'd rather be selfish than be
Mhm.
selfless. Like, I want to be fully myself, because I can only show up as myself. The best thing that I could ever do is show up as the best version of myself. But if there are things that are challenging me that are preventing me from doing that, and I think having, good self care is how I keep my pulse on that. So whether it's my bubble bath, whether it's, working out or, a walk or something, figure out what that is for you and go and do that thing. Maybe it's crocheting, maybe it's taking a nap, whatever that is. So develop a routine for self care, because that's going to help you figure out how healthy you are, right?
Well,
And then if you need that support and if you need that help, find community to reach out to, whether it's, an actual therapist, whether it's family, friends, a support group. Because sometimes the support group is great because they're people you don't know,
okay.
but they are going through the same thing that you may be going through. So I think it's important for you to find community and be, when you do that, I want to encourage people to be vulnerable in a safe place, but be vulnerable about it, because your healing will only happen as
Mm,
true and vulnerable as you allow yourself to be. If you
mhm.
continue to put a mask on, you won't heal. You won't show up, to really get to the crux and the root of problems and issues. So I would say, you know, um, do those things. So self care, find community, show up as yourself, be vulnerable. Yeah.
That's some
Yeah.
good stuff, Liz.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining on this episode. We really appreciate you guys. Again, don't forget to subscribe and like this, share it out with someone, and then, put some suggestions in the comments of topics you would like to hear us talk about. And we'll meet you on the next time, on the next episode. Be safe. Thanks, everyone.
God
Bye, sis.
bless. Bye.